Okay, I'm with George Murray, currently Mayor of Farnham, valued driver for Care Farnham until his many duties have forced a temporary stepping back. George, can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing in Burnley?
Yeah, sure. I'm from a little town just outside Burnley, a little town called Nelson in Lancashire, and as you can imagine, it's a little bit like Coronation Street, terraced houses, cobbled streets, mills. It certainly was in the 60s where I was born. It was still black and white TV, and I think maybe even the war was still going on in the 60s up in Lancashire. I don't think the swinging 60s had met it when I was growing up. But it was certainly a great community place. Lots of people worked, and there was lots of social clubs and lots of things we did. I went to the local schools. I'm from a family of four. My older sister, we're very close. My older sister, where she's only 10 months older than me, which was at the time I found out quite unusual. But we were in the same year at school, so we used to go dancing together, and we had friends together. We got the local youth clubs, and it was fun. It was a great time. Even though the towns, look fairly bleak with the cobble streets and the dark Sartanic mills, it wasn't so much that. What was amazing was the countryside around it. It was in the Pennines and the valleys and the hills, and the countryside around was amazing. We'd go up Pendle Hill, and we every day, every weekend throughout the summer, and all through the summer holidays, we would be out on our bikes, going around and just spending time in the countryside all the time. So we had great fun. It was a great, nice, simple life to live in. Yeah.
And your family background.
My parents were solid working class northern people. My dad was a miner and then later a bus driver. My mother was a mill worker, and then later she was a cook. Like I said, there was four of us. I left school at 15. I didn't go on to further education. One of my real ambition at school was to be an actor. I loved being a drama at school and the school plays and all those kind of things. So I really enjoyed that. But there wasn't really an opportunity to do that, I don't think. And certainly my family weren't going to encourage it. But I went, and then when I left school at 15, I got myself a trade, and I went to be an apprentice in a local garage as a paint sprayer and mechanic, which I did for about 2 years. I think I did it for. I learnt some skills. I learnt the skill of hard work and preparation was important, and to do things right, which I thought some of the lessons I learnt from there. But it wasn't really what I wanted to do, and I always had a ambition to travel. I always wanted to look further at my horizons. I didn't see myself living in this little town in Lancashire for the rest of my life. I was always a bit of a dreamer. I always thought there was going to be something more outside for me.
Great. So then you followed your dream outside
Yeah,
Lancashire.
well, a little bit, yeah. It was a bit more opportunistic, really. I think I must have been watching holiday programs with Judith Chalmers, or maybe even it was Faulty Towers. But I decided to go to Torquay. I think I'd seen it, and I thought, oh, this looks great. Palm trees, beaches, summer holiday. I thought, yeah, I'm going to go and get a job working in a hotel. So me and my mate, we just decided to take the train. We got the rest. We had 50 quid in our pocket, I think, and then went down to Torquay, and then went round knocking on all the hotels. And anyway, we were really fortunate. We got a job within that week, and we got a job working at the Imperial Hotel in Torquay. It's a big five-star hotel. I didn't know much about it, but it was really quite prestigious. And we got a job working in the kitchens for the summer, washing dishes and plates and stuff. So it was fun. It was fun. So that was my starting point into the hotels, which launched a career in which I spent 35 years working in hotels.
And how did things progress for you with your career in hotels?
Yeah, I was lucky. I was fortunate. At the end of that summer, when that summer finished, I was offered a job front of house working as a luggage porter, bellman, And I thought, this is great. What a job this is. I'm getting paid twice. I got paid once for my wages, and then also I got loads of tips. So I got just as much money in tips. And I thought, this is absolutely great. All I've got to do is be nice to people, which came naturally to me. So I was quite happy with it. And then I was working in the hotels. It was a bit of a transition. So you had people working in the hotels who'd been there for 30, 40 years, people who worked in the 30s and 40s and 50s. And they brought all those traditions of service and also the guests were still, they used to dress in black tie for dinner, and they would be beautiful ball gowns, and they were very elegant. So it was a really sort of a transitioning period from that early 80s. But I really loved it, and then I became a concierge. So I got offered a job at the concierge desk, and I became a concierge, and that sort of started my career in service. And it was really because I liked helping people, I liked fixing problems, I liked organising things and getting things done. So for me to be a concierge was a absolute dream job. And then, yeah.
Sorry, and then it was a platform for working elsewhere.
Yeah, I left Torquay in '86, and we went to the Grand Hotel in Brighton, which is, if you remember, that was where the bombing happened in 1984. But we came at when the hotel was reopening, and I did the reopening of the Grand Hotel in Brighton in '86. There was 6 or 7 of us who came from the Imperial Hotel with one of the managers, and I became the head concierge at the Grand Hotel. I was quite young. I was only 25 or 26. I think I was 26 at the time, and stayed there for 6-7 years. I had a really great time. But it also gave me a springboard to do one thing in my life which I always really wanted to do, was travel and work abroad. So I was given an opportunity to spend a year in Paris as a bellman at the Georges V Hotel, and I took that. I didn't speak French. I started learning it. Again, I had the confidence, I think, just to be able to say, well, this will be okay. I can do this. And I had the courage and persistence to carry on with it. Yeah, I had a great time. I met my wife there. She's a Dutch girl. We're still married 30 odd years later. So that was a great thing. But Paris was good. And then I came back, and then I started my career in London as a head concierge in a smaller hotel in Kensington. And then I worked my way to the Four Seasons Hotel in Park Lane, where I spent the remainder of my concierge career for over 25 years as a concierge in London. But then that moves me to why I moved to Farnham. Four Seasons opened a country house hotel not far from here, about 5 miles away, in Dogmersfield. And the general manager was a friend of mine, and he asked me if I would be interested in opening this new country house hotel. And at the time I was looking to move to a smaller town and move out of London with the 2 boys. I had 2 boys by then who were 6 and 7. And it was a perfect time for us to move to a smaller, wanted to move to a town where it would mean commuting, but in the end, this was a good opportunity. So in 2005, I moved to Farnham. And it was really, we looked around, and we went to Odium and Hartley Wintney and Church Crookham. But as soon as my wife and I drove down Castle Street, my wife said, yeah, this is where I want to live. This is the place I want to live. So we've been happily in Farnham for the last 25 years or so.
Great. And perhaps a little bit about your movement into sort of community life in Farnham.
I think after working in hotels, I went back up to, I left the Four Seasons in Dogmersfield and moved back to Four Seasons in London, Park Lane, to reopen that hotel. So I did a reopening of that five-star hotel in Park Lane, and I worked there, continued to work there for another 5 or 6 years, commuting from Farnham. But I always had a hankering to have my own business, but also to work within the community. So I convinced my wife that we should open a coffee shop. I know, typical midlife crisis, I know. But anyway, she agreed. So we sort of downsized the house and then took the money from it and we invested in a coffee shop business in Lion and Lamb Yard in Farnham. This was in 2019. And it was great, really, really interesting. It was something I'd always had an ambition to do, have my own project. Even though COVID came along and it was, obviously disruptive. But it actually, what I liked about it was I could make my own decisions. It was freedom, really, as a small business owner, to be able to do what you thought was the right thing for your staff, your customers, and abiding by the rules. So for me, it was a really enjoyable time, and that I met lots and lots of community people. I really got involved in the community, certainly the business community. And also through my customers. And I was sort of asked if I'd like to become a councillor on the local council in 23, and I did. I stood as a councillor and won my election for both the town council and the district council, which was quite odd. And then I've been a councillor since then, and then this past year I've been the mayor. So it's been great. I've really enjoyed it.
And how did you come to join up with Care Farnham?
So I met, obviously, Tim. I'd heard about you, and I came along. I was invited as the deputy mayor, I think, if I remember rightly, last year, to come along to your AGM. And I'd heard about Care Farnham, and I knew what we did because the town council gave you a grant towards the things you do and supported you. And I wondered, and I'd heard what a great job you did. But one of the amazing things when I came to the AGM was actually how you actually support other charities. What I didn't realise was that you're a charity with volunteers who does a brilliant service taking people to their hospital appointments and taking them home. But also you raise money for other local charities, which I think is an absolute virtuous circle. And I thought that was a really amazing thing to do. So I thought, well, I can do that if I can do that. So I had a bit of time. I thought I was a councillor. I had a bit of time on my hands, not knowing that I would be mayor and I would be the leader of the opposition and, leader of the Farnham residents group. So I didn't realise I was going to have all these extra things. And I also needed to do a little bit of work. So I do a couple of days a week working in Elphick's department store. So really, it was a bit of all these things came up, but which stopped me being able to take on as many jobs as I would like. But I really do support Care Farnham, their ethos of it, their drivers, everybody. It's a real in a community of drivers and what you do. But you get to meet great people who are also, they are, you're taking them to hospital appointments. So there's a worry, right? So they are slightly, they're nervous because maybe they're going for tests or they've got, serious issues. So they are slightly worse. So you do get to talk to people on a more of a personal thing than you would be if you were just a taxi driver or something. They see you as part of the community, and that I really enjoyed. And I think, and I know that a lot of drivers get to know their clients really well, and also they become part of their, their journey, not just their journey, but part of their community. And that's what I really like about Care Farnham. And whatever I can do in the future that I can do to support it in my council work, then I absolutely will.
George, that's been brilliant. It's wonderful to have warm Lancashire.
Thank you.
Care as part of the Care Farm team. Thank you very much.
That's very kind. Tim, all the best to you. Thank you.